This is the school board briefing meeting, Tuesday, October 7, 2014. It is 2:07 p.m. Our first presenter is Dr. Pete Bohatch and Mr. Rob Dodig on hazing.
I'll start, and good afternoon, Madam Chair.
No.
This one's hot.
That one's working? Okay.
There you go.
It's dangerous to be first. The proposed policy regarding hazing is before you today at this briefing as a result of the 2014 legislative session where the legislature amended Florida Statute Section 1006.135 to include a requirement that school boards have a board policy regarding hazing. And the statute is very specific what has to be in that policy, and that is what is before you today. And we're here to answer any questions.
Board members, do you have any questions? Mrs. Dozier.
I have a couple, but I'm going to have to find them because I didn't. Not having paper anymore, I can't write on my screen, so let me find the two issues that I had on this. Let's see.
While she looks, is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? Mrs. Fisher.
Okay. And this policy only pertains to grades 6 through 12?
Yeah, and that's a good question. The statute only requires that the policy apply to grades 6 through 12. However, I believe, and you can certainly ask Mr. Martin, your attorney, but I believe the board would have the discretion to make it a K through 12 policy. But what is in front of you is exactly what the statute required. So if there's some desire of the board to make it K through 12, that's certainly open for discussion, I suspect.
To your knowledge, or Dr. Bohatch, do you know that we have had incidents of hazing here in Lee County?
Yes, ma'am.
We have. At high school level
Yes, ma'am.
only?
I'm in my 10th year. I know of a few incidents at the high school level, yes.
Right, okay.
And there's been a few at middle school as well.
Okay.
Mrs. Dozier.
Okay. On line 23 on, I don't see page 1 of 2,
Yes.
where it says hazing does not include customary athletic events or similar contests or competitions or any activity or conduct that furthers a legal or legitimate objective. Okay? When I read that, I went, so does that kind of mean that if the football players want to get together and do something, or the band people want to get together and do something? To me, that kind of opened the door that it'd be okay for them to do that. Hazing does not include customary athletic events. Well, it may be customary for one particular school to blindfold all the ninth graders coming into the band and parade them around the school in the halls and so that's a customary event that they do all the time, and they've been doing it, so they don't consider it hazing because it's a event that they've been doing. So I had concern with that language. And I don't know what we would need to put in there to eliminate that.
That language is specifically from the statute. That's not language that we created. That was language that the legislature created. But I certainly believe, and Mr. Martin can certainly give you advice, but I think it's certainly within the board's purview to try to define what that means. And I can certainly attempt to do that and bring this back to another briefing meeting if that's the wish of the board.
Rob, is it talk? I read it to mean, I didn't even go there, but it's an interesting thought. I read it to mean during a game, During a game or
Correct.
or during an actual competition.
Yes, and I believe that's the intent of the legislature with the language. But I also, like you, Dr. Graham, when Ms. Dozier presented it, I hadn't thought of it that way.
It says customary athletic events. One of the customary athletic
Yep.
events is they have practices. A customary event for the tennis group is to have practice. They also might have meetings. Those are customary events. So it doesn't define, I don't know, that language, and I know how legislation is made.
Yes.
A lot of times it's made very quickly, it's, last minute, I'd have to go back and look and see when that legislation passed, and then they have to go back and they say, oh, we messed up on this one, maybe we needed to have different language here or something like that. And I think that I would feel better if we did something to where we defined what we're talking about
Okay.
in here.
Define customary athletic event.
Well,
That'll-
any contest, competitions, basically hazing, any type of hazing at any event is unacceptable. That would be another phrase that you could put on, in there. Hazing is unacceptable, no matter what, If you've got a customary event that you question, ask the principal. It may be hazing, so if it is, you can't do it.
Right. So is it the desire or the consensus of the board to try to define those terms and come back? Because that would be a substantive change.
Right. Mrs. Fisher?
Well, thank you. Well, on line 11, number 1, it does clearly define what hazing includes, and it says that endangers the mental or physical health or safety of a student, and then it tells what it looks like, pressuring, coercing. But I definitely concur with Mrs. Dozier that this does open a door here. And so are we at liberty to add language to that particular section, which maybe repeats again about the harm or danger? Because that they're kind of saying that at a practice or a game, almost anything goes, in the way I interpreted it.
Mr. Martin?
The requirement, as Mr. Dodig explained, the statute requires that certain components be in the policy, and one of the requirements is that the definition be included, and the definition is required to be that which is in the statute. And the definition of hazing does include the language that we've been discussing, the line that says hazing does not include the customary athletic events, so on. So I believe that language does have to be in the policy. Yes, I believe the board does have discretion to add language to define the terms within that section if that's the desire.
I would share Mrs. Dozier and Ms. Fisher's concerns about that phrasing, and I think we need to embellish it a little bit, define it better.
I'd concur on that as well.
Okay. As a result of that, and Mr. Martin can certainly give advice, but I believe it would be a substantive change, so we'll have to brief this again and then set it for public hearing at a later time.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yeah, I just have one more question then. And we're not obliged to limit this to grades 6 through 12, but we could include elementary because, the potential is there, and there have been situations that I've been aware of that may or may not have been related to initiations into certain clubs by 4th and 5th graders that could have been considered hazing. So
The board can address more situations than the statute requires, yes.
Okay.
And with the discussion, I might suggest that it might be prudent to bring back the proposed revision to the board before the policy is actually advertised, because
Right.
it sounds like there might be some more discussion. before it's time to bring it to a briefing for that required review before public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bohatch?
All right, I'm here to update you on the Susser offenses, the new ones for the 14-15 school year. First up, hazing. There it is. There's the definition. I won't read it to you, but basically pressuring, coercing, or forcing a student to participate in an illegal or dangerous behavior. First offense, level 3.
Okay.
Further questions on hazing?
Board members?
Okay. Next up.
Oh, Mrs. Fisher?
I'm sorry.
Well, assuming that we might include elementary grades in the policy, then would that be a district decision about what the consequence would be?
That's a real good
It might
question.
be different at
Yes,
at that
and
level?
it would be a principal's decision on the outcome. Obviously, there's no level 3 offense at the elementary school.
Okay.
And believe me, they call all the time, the elementary folks, and unfortunately, elementary kids commit Susser offenses. And they're constantly calling for guidance on what the consequence should look like.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we've got physical attack. This is something that's new. Striking another person against his or her will. Okay, any questions on physical attack? Think in terms of a lesser battery on this one. Okay, less serious bodily injury. So BAT currently exists as assessor. This is something new. The state wants to collect data on the less serious. So that's what this is all about.
Okay.
Once again, first offense is level 3 admin review.
Any questions?
No.
No. Okay.
Okay. And the last one, sexual assault. Incident includes a threat of rape, fondling, etc. First offense, level 3.
Okay.
Questions? No?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much, Dr. Bohatch and Mr. Dodick. And next up is Dr. Atkins. And Ms. DJ Bedau.
Good afternoon, board members. Dr. Graham. Here to present the policy revision for Board Policy 9.08, School Fire Safety. The purpose of this particular revision, we want to update the codes, mandates, and compliance terms, unification of the Safety and Security Department. As you recall, in the reorganization, we have the Department of Security, and then we have the fire inspections, and we're kind of unifying them under one Department of Safety and Security. We want to clarify role responsibility and directives. So safety and security, again, we're joining together under one roof to provide really a unified vision as it relates to district-wide safety and security. The fire school safety issue also addresses ADA, health, state statutes, code federal regulations, sanitation, and certified playground school inspector playground guidelines and mandates. formatted procedures and policy for school sites, and then it addresses the updated checklist. The first section of this policy focuses on the principal's area of enforcement. And just really some cleanup here is what we did, removed sections that we felt were redundant. We also, of course, wanted to change the department name where that was relevant. And then in section 1D, 1, 2, 3, we added the section where it covers life safety code issues, condenses and removes duplications later in this document, such as emergency drills and assurance of staff responsibilities being conducted. So there were things that you saw back with teachers or other staff assigned that really needed to come under the principal's area of enforcement. So in going up and cleaning that up, it put it squarely where the responsibility was and then eliminated it later on in the policy. We thought that you might be interested in this when DJ and the other inspectors go out and do their inspections. These are the areas that you see the most in terms of violations or things that they run across when they're out there. The first category, which is you see the most violations, is if people bring things from their home into the school, and so they have to ask for those to be removed. Making sure our emergency lights are up to par and operational. Furniture that meets our flame retardant guidelines, because we have to, it's very specific in terms of what is allowed in the school and what is not allowed in the school, much stricter than what you might find in your home. So if you bring the home sofa to a school building, that often causes an issue. Teachers, we love to decorate. I, myself included, I'm sure I have had my own little violations over the years being a science teacher, but putting things up on the walls and getting cited for just too much decoration. And then the door closures, if you've been in a building, you're aware of this. You can't have your doors propped open, but when they walk around, sometimes they'll find them propped open, and it's very important that doors that are designed to shut in the case of an emergency be allowed to do so, and we can't put a physical impediment to that taking place. So those are really the top violations that you see during these fire inspections. The next section focuses on the teacher's responsibility. Teachers are about educating, so it updated that language and really just revised it for a better understanding for district staff on what the National Fire Codes and Department of Education allows at a school site. And it also targets the district's top violation issues. Section 3 of the policy focuses on the building supervisor's responsibility and the head custodian's responsibility. We did remove things that were addressed elsewhere in the policy and added the process for inspecting gas shutoff valves daily, and then added monthly checks of all emergency exit windows, fire smoke doors, and exhaust and ventilation systems. Section 4, principal staff assignment. Again, clean up a lot of the language and remove things that were addressed elsewhere in the policy. And then the remainder of 4, A, B, C, D, and E addresses staff supervision by the principal or designee in regards to issues such as safety training, annual fire and SRF inspections, documentation accountability, drill documentation, school safety committees, and reference to process documents and the fire safety and inspection checklist.
Okay, great. Going to halt you for 1 minute.
Sure.
We have a question.
Actually, not a question, an observation. Back here under where it says teachers are shall be responsible for, I see where we struck out the previous B, and I know it's in something else, and I heard you say the rationale for that, because I know back somewhere it says, I read it somewhere else, but I just didn't understand why we didn't have it right there under teachers. It says, okay, under here where it says, I guess it says, let's see. Let's see. Building supervisors, head goes over. in cooperation with principals and teachers shall, and then down here under teachers, it then says something about participate. Back over on page 5 of 9, assure that, I just saw it somewhere.
Perhaps 2B.
Participate in fire,
2B, ma'am.
pardon me?
That would be 2B.
Okay, I don't understand why we're taking that away from where, you know, if I'm a teacher, I'm going to read what pertains to me, and I don't understand the rationale unless it's by state mandate that we have to change that. I don't understand why because I know how I did as a teacher. There's no reason I mean, teachers have enough to do without having to go and read every policy. I'm going to read what pertains to me in my classroom. So, and if it doesn't, you know, so I question why we took out participating in fire drills along with their students and putting it in that other that's under principals. Another thing is, when I read this about B, it says no residential grade furniture, flooring, spray treatments. Okay, spray treatments, would that be things like lacquers for spraying chalk drawings or pastel drawings? I know the art teachers use something like that all the time. So my question is, who's going to be responsible to let these people know that they can't do that?
I'll try to answer your first question, and then if DJ can answer the
And I
second one.
got a lot more on this one, too, just so
Okay.
you'll know.
All right. And again, you know, I don't have an issue with adding it back in terms of the teacher responsibility. The reason it was deleted is if you look at 1E, the principal's responsibility is their role is to ensure that all staff and students participate in all emergency drills. So it puts it on the principal to assure that the teacher participates in those drills.
And I saw that, and I just, redundancy doesn't bother me here. I mean, that is redundant, and I would rather be overly safe than, I would err on the side of extra safety.
Is there any disagreement among the rest of the board?
No.
Just put it back in, if you would.
That is a matter that language that could be added without re-advertising because it is essentially redundant and just repeats a requirement
Well,
that's
we're
already
probably
in
going
the
to have to
draft.
re-advertise because I've got language that's going to have to be added down later.
Spray treatment is fireproofing. Spray treatment.
I'm hearing somebody whisper.
Saying spray treatment is fireproofing.
Okay, now you started on this, you were, before I got an opportunity to speak to you, you were talking about, let me find it again, that's the only thing about these. All right, on page 2 of 9, where it says it's going to be the building supervisors or head custodians check automated and manual gas shut-off valves daily, check all exhaust working properly monthly. I think we need to put some language in there that they have some type of a check system, just like up here we have a check system, paperwork or some kind of check system where it talks about fire drills. There's some kind of documentation that's in here that you're keeping about having the fire drills. I think that the custodians need, or the head custodians need to have some type of, I mean, that's just, in the business practice world, they do that every day, and that's just another safety thing. It shows that you do it like you're supposed to do it.
One of the things that we are doing, if you notice that the inspection checklist is referenced in this policy, and these are items that would be included as a part of that checklist. So it is a part of the checklist that all school sites receive, that they're expected to do those things, and part of what the inspectors do is make sure that the buildings are compliant with that checklist. So the thing that you're concerned about is incorporated in that and referenced in the policy.
So what you're telling me is, back up here where it talks about having where, and I don't remember where that is, but where it talked about having like a paper trail, basically, to document that you've had your fire drills and so forth. So what you're telling me is that these things would be added to that?
So the checklist, and then the policy refers to that checklist. So again, the fire inspectors, when they're making sure that the buildings are compliant, they have that fire inspection checklist that they go when they do the inspection and make sure that all of these things have been done and the documentation is in place.
All right.
And what may help or may not, but when I get to the section about how the inspection takes place, you may have specific questions of DJ in terms of what she looks for and how things are followed up. And she may also want to add some stuff as well.
Well, and what I'm going to say is I know that, I know when the fire inspectors and the fire chiefs come through our buildings, they're going to look for specific things, and their job is to make sure that the building is as safe as possible and all the guidelines and everything are met. I'm just not sure if out in the work world, out in the public sector, or private sector, excuse me, we're the public. I know they have safety. They constantly have reviews of their safety stuff that they need to do. They also, each division has its own responsibility of keeping up with paperwork and so forth. Having just one, I'm just not sure that one bit of paperwork is sufficient, because is that really going to remind that person that that's their responsibility to do that every single month? And I do know that custodians should have lists of things that they need to do every month. Why can't that be on their list? That's a reminder to them that they have to do that, because we had last year schools that didn't do fire drills. So I don't want us to come up and have another year where, oh, well, we didn't do that because we didn't have it written down that it was supposed to be done or something like that. I've been through the nightmare of all these fire code stuff, and I don't think any of you were in the position that I was in at that time, and it was a pretty bad time. When you have a threat that your schools won't open, when you have a threat that you've got serious violations, that children are in danger, it's because all of these things were not, properly attended to all along. So I don't know if that's a major change, because you're saying that it has to be done. So I don't know, Mr. Martin, is that a major change?
Yes, if it's adding a responsibility, yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know how my fellow board members feel about that, but.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
Well, I agree with you that it should be well documented, and that there should be that checklist for each one of those opportunities to do that monthly.
Well, I know DJ has something she wants to address with you all. The second thing is that I do want to make it.
Waking over there.
I do want to make it clear that school sites have this as a checklist, and it is your responsibility as a principal to make sure that your folks have that document, this checklist, to make sure that all that stuff is attended to prior to receiving an inspection. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is, in terms of the checklist and the process document, if there is a desire to do something, in addition to provide another checklist for those people, I think we can certainly do that as a part of our process document or our list. And I don't know if that would constitute a major change, and I'd look to Mr. Martin for that.
Mr. Armstrong, do you have any comments?
Actually, I do have a few comments. And I do agree. I see no problem having the checklist. To me, it's and I've dealt with these fire inspectors, God, for 20 years. I mean, day in and day out, being a plumber, that's kind of part of my gig too, on top of it all. So I know how they can be. They like to see that paperwork. So I have no problem putting that checklist there. And if nothing else, also having that checklist around tells other people that something else they can look at as well, that, oh wait, that wasn't done, and just reminds people. It's just a constant reminder and doing the, so it's a little extra paperwork. As board, we often go into schools. It might be something that we notice, oh whoops, that wasn't done. Maybe we need to say something to somebody. So, you know, it's going to help everybody in the long run. And really, we're talking about student safety. One more extra step, really. If it's going to help the students, I agree with Ms. Dozier on this.
I guess my question is, how often do these inspections take place in a school so that someone is actually looking at this one record that's being kept? If it's only happening, how often do they happen?
Go ahead. I'd like to stress that the intent was actually to make the policy a little more stringent and not lax. And I thank you for catching what you felt was removing something that might be needed. We did stress in Section 1, and we changed it from just fire evacuation drills to all emergency drills for all staff. And that was critical for us to have that in the policy. That had not been in there previously. In the fire safety inspection checklist, there's items in here that are monthly, weekly, annually, biannually, and then we come in, not just as fire inspectors, but safety, health, sanitation, and casualty. And we come in and we actually are conducting an audit of what your administrative staff has done and put in one large safety file in the front office, which I believe that Dr. Graham had them bring in earlier this year, and also conducted a small audit on that, which is portable, and they can bring it in, and we all can take a look at it, or you can walk into the front office and take a look at it. And that way we have all the records compiled in one location at the front office for multiple different checks and balances. We have everything from fire sprinkler to staff OSHA training to all our emergency drills and bus evacuations and so forth on this checklist, which is attached within this policy.
Okay, I get that, but then my question becomes, who's looking at it?
We check it annually. When we
Okay.
do our annual fire safety inspection, we check this checklist. If we find something missing, we bring it to the attention of the principal and administration, and they look for the records right then to rectify it, and we come back in and we check it again on the recertification, on the reinspect.
Okay, but that takes me back to Mrs. Dozier's comment, which is that if the job's not being done and we don't notice it for a whole year, and it's a critical thing that we should be observing, I am beginning to understand.
Well, and I'm going to use my husband's business, for instance. All right, my husband is like the one who is over everything. But he's got different men out in the warehouse that have different responsibilities. He has a checklist in his office, and he will go to these men and say, have you done so-and-so? But this man over here, oh, let me see, I don't remember. Nope, he doesn't have to do that because he's got a checklist. Yes, Mr. Dozier, I did that and I did it on so-and-so. It's a safeguard. I mean, and all of these safety things, he has to do that. He doesn't have a choice. So I don't see how we can say, all right, the valves have to be checked monthly, but we don't have to really have anything. So all of a sudden, 6 months down the road into school, oh, God, I didn't check those valves. Let me go in there and write my name down there real quick. I'm not saying that anybody would do that, but the potential is there. And the principal has it's the principal's responsibility to oversee all of this. So when the principal goes to that person and says, did you check the valves? Yes, sir, I did. Well, it's not recorded in the office. Well, I did check them, but I forgot to go to the office and record them. That's easy. Little things like that are easy to happen. So, and it's, again, I think that we need to err on the side of safety. We need to err on the side of every potential bit of safety to make sure that our buildings and everybody in those buildings are as safe as possible. You know, I'm not trying to
Where, I've lost track. Where would you add the language?
Well, right here where it says check automated manuals daily, document on check sheet, check all exhaust working properly, and it says monthly, document on check sheet. And that might get us to where we don't have to add it, you know, where we don't have to re-advertise. I'm trying to figure out a way, because it's still in the same sentence. Check all fire doors and smoke doors to determine they all close automatically and properly. Do this monthly. Document it on check sheet.
Because it does add a responsibility, my advice would be, is this a substantive change? We'd have to re-advertise. Sorry.
So since we're going to have to re-advertise anyway, do we want to put a statement at the beginning of Section 3 that it'll all be documented on the checklist, or do we want to add it to each sentence?
Well, I don't, since we're going to re-advertise anyway, I don't see any reason for saying something like, we're talking here about custodians and building supervisors,
right,
will maintain a check sheet, will maintain a check sheet in their area to determine the following. Something like that.
So put it at the start of the section.
Yeah.
Dr. Adkins, did you get that?
I got the gist of it, but if she could repeat it one more time, I'll write it down.
Maintain a checklist.
Maintain a checklist in the area, in the custodial area, so that they have it right there in their area. And they have a little room that they go to every day. They should have a check sheet in that room every day. You know, I know my husband's plant manager, he's got something right there by his desk. He's got this pad that he looks at hanging up every day.
So they maintain a checklist, Greg, and then they also document according to whatever the task is.
Okay.
The frequency of the task.
Okay, Mrs. Fisher.
So then I'm hearing Mrs. Dozier say that, and it could be in any one of the areas, not only the building
Right.
the building supervisor,
Right.
but that any individual responsibilities will be documented either on a checklist or a calendar or whatever, so that each individual has a documentation that they did in fact perform the duty that they're responsible for,
Right.
or their designee if they're not there.
So just so I understand, the safety cabinet or binder, you have these inspections that are documented, and the way it should work is that gets put in that binder upon completion of that particular inspection. For example, if you're doing the monthly fire extinguisher inspection, you did it for the month of October, then you put it in the binder that's in the front office. But what we would like is, in addition to that, to have a checklist in the area, like in the responsibility. So if it's the building supervisor, that those things are also documented in that custodial area. Okay, we can do that.
Okay,
All right.
moving on.
In the annual inspection, this is when DJ or one of the other fire inspectors goes out to a building. Robin and Elisa, we have 3 of them. They'll walk it actually with somebody from the fire department in many cases. So we have a very collaborative relationship. Both inspectors work together to make the least amount of disruption as possible. In fact, she talked to me about how they make sure that they wear their uniforms and their badges so that the kids know that they're official people, not just some stranger on campus. And they do those inspections. I think it's helpful to the building. It's actually a helpful process to our building administrators when they identify a problem that needs fixed immediately, they jump on it and they fix it immediately. If it's something that can be processed through a work order, they do process it via a work order. So school district fire safety inspectors combine both inspection reports together to provide a copy of each district site. This helps to eliminate any confusion, and both inspectors sign reports for submission to the school board of Lee County as well as the state fire marshal. And then what we were talking about in policy 9.08, the fire safety and inspection checklist. You see it marked out on your policy, but what we're doing is pulling that out and referencing it in the policy to give it agility. So if we can react quickly to changes, like let's say the National Fire Protection Association makes a change, we can quickly add that. There was a suggestion of the gas valves being turned off. We can add that to the checklist and get that out quickly. And then we've also, at Dr. Graham's direction, created a process document that documents how we actually do this process of fire inspections that hadn't taken place. We didn't have that before. So the checklist is provided to all district sites. It's also available on the website. And at the time of the annual inspection, the checklist is gone over by the inspectors in the school site. And then, as I mentioned, any of those safety items are addressed immediately if they need to be, or we follow up and make sure the proper work order is done. And these are the reasons why we need that. It's good to have the checklist, as you all mentioned, really to have a checklist in their hands to provide really a monitoring system for all mandates and regulations at the fire safety and health arena. And again, working together with checks and balances keeps the district properly informed of the most current requirements, which is why we want this document to be agile. I also would like just to mention that I spoke to Mr. Alton. Good news is that we are rolling out the web application for the fire drills at the end of this month. Right now we have an electronic process, but this one is, I think it's going to be awesome, to use a Clayton Simmons verbiage, because it's going to, as a school principal, you are going to be provided email reminders in terms of that you need to do your monthly emergency egress drill, for example. And then if you don't have it documented and turned in, it sends you another reminder that you need to get it in. So it keeps going, and I think it will assure us that we will maintain what our goal is and what we really feel is our requirement, and that's 100% compliance, which we are to this point, I'm happy to report. And with that, any other questions?
Board members?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys did a lot of work. Thank you very much. You know, we've just made some minor changes, but I really appreciate all the work you did on this document. Thank you.
Well, I have to say that the maintenance department and the fire inspections team did this work, and you couldn't work with a more knowledgeable, hardworking group of individuals.
Good. Thank you.
We're excited that all of this work is going to be in the same place. Have you noticed Dr. Desamore never comes alone?
And I'm going to let Dr. Desamore introduce everyone that she has brought with her. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Graham, members of the board. We are here today to give you an investment update, but I am going to, that's right, I don't come along alone. I bring reinforcements, and they're the ones who actually know what's going on. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Tubb, and he is going to do the introductions and give some background, and then I'm going to turn it over to David Jang, who's going to give us even more information.
Ms. Morgan, board members, Dr. Graham. My name is Bill Tubb. I am here with David Jang and Taryn Backley, who are with Davidson Fixed Income. They are our investment advisors. Our policy does mandate that we bring to you a quarterly report of our investments. We've had a report ready for you, and the documentation that you have in your file there is our June 30th. But David brought down with this a September 30th update, so we'll be really giving you current information now, not that information. I will provide you with a hard copy of the September 30 report as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to David.
Thank you very much, board members. Dr. Graham, thank you very much for having myself and Taryn here today. We are very happy because when you first hired us to be your investment advisor, we promised you that we will maintain the safety of the principal of the funds, at the same time earn you a rate of return higher than what we were getting at your existing investments. So with that, I'd like to take a look at these. This is the long-term core portfolio. With the help of the staff here, we're able to get a projected cash flow analysis, which allowed us to separate the funds that you all had at the Florida Prime Fund. And we're able to segregate approximately $100 million into what we call a long-term core investment portfolio. So what we've done is we separated the portfolio into, on the left-hand side of the pie chart, 53% is in U.S. Treasuries. This is part of your the district's investment policy, and at the same time, it also meets Florida state investment statutes. The other half is we have 46% in what we call corporate notes. These corporate notes are debt obligations of high-quality corporations. That is part, once again, of your investment policy and Florida state investment statutes. If I bring your attention to the right-hand side, your book value yield is basically what are you earning on your entire portfolio. If anyone may ask, what is the district earning on his long-term core portfolio? It is 89 basis points. Now compare that to 16 basis points. This is where you're earning at the Florida Prime Fund. What we've done is we have increased by fivefold your earnings on $100 million. And bottom line, what does it earn from July through September of 2014? This long-term core portfolio added $221,579.96 to the district's investment income. Any questions on the long-term core portfolio?
Mrs. Dozier?
So what you're saying is the quarter-to-date earnings were $96,752.94. Is that what I just understood?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Dozier. You were looking at the in front of you is the ending June 30th. We brought forth the most recent one, which is as of September 30th. So
up on the screen.
That's different
Yeah.
than what we have.
Or down there.
Oh, okay, I can't see that.
Right.
I can't read that stuff. That's just
We brought you more current
updated.
figures than what we had submitted
Okay.
to you originally.
Okay.
And I will get you a hard copy of this so you'll have it.
okay. All right, thank you.
But for this portfolio, if you look at this, you are earning 89 basis points. That's 0.89%. Your portfolio total return from April 1st, when we started investing in this portfolio, till September 30th, is 2.29% on an annualized basis. The difference between the book value and your portfolio total return is all it is. The total return includes what we call unrealized gains and losses. That fluctuates every single day. But this is pretty standard information that we give to board members. Two things you need to know. What am I earning? 0.89%. And on the left-hand side is, am I in compliance with my investment policy and Florida state investment statutes? And it shows you both right here. Okay. This next chart here is your cash portfolio sector allocation. This is as of August 31st. We could not get from the bank the statements in time for this meeting. But what we've done is we've taken that, this is your cash portfolio, which we determined that the district needs to operate. We want this to be in liquid form where you can get to it every single day. So what we've done is we've taken on the pie chart on the left-hand side, as of August 31st, you still had $107 million at what we call the SBA, or the Florida Prime Fund. That you have daily access to. That is basically being drawn down even as we speak. That balance is a lot less now. On the upper right-hand side of this, in the, I guess, light brown color, you also have $25 million in Florida at Florida Community Bank. Florida Community Bank is what we call a QPD, a Qualified Public Depository. That's required by state investment statutes and your investment policy. And then, of course, in the pink shaded area, you have another $38 million at your bank. You have a bank operating account at the bank just to maintain, to pay for checks, the ongoing operations of the district. With that, you have your total cash is $172 million as of August 31st, earning a yield of 20 basis points, which is higher than the 16 basis points that you would have had by leaving all your money at the Florida Prime Fund. So we, as your investment manager, working with the finance staff, we have been able to diversify your portfolio, which you've asked us to do when we were hired at the board meeting. At the same time, we've increased your earnings, which also is very, very important to the district. So with that, I'll open up for any more questions from the board.
Board members?
Well,
Yes.
not really a question, a comment. It looks like we're doing relatively well as far as our investments, so thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dozier.
And I guess my question would be net of cost. How are we doing?
The district has negotiated a very aggressive fee. The management fee that the district pays to us is 4 basis points. And on their long-term core portfolio, that is a gross number, so you minus 4 basis points. So if we go back to, we only charge you on what we manage, which is the $100 million. So for instance, if you're earning 0.89%, net of fee, you're earning 0.85.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Pool B.
Oh, yes. Mr. Tubb has asked me to also give an update to the board about your Florida Prime Fund Pool B. As of September 30th, there's no more balances left in there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
If you give us just a second, we're going to transition over to talk about the TAN, or the tax anticipation note, and I'm inviting Mr. Will Reed up.
Oh, it's like, where you go?
Board members, this is a topic you all have had at least one conversation with Mr. Ford and Will on prior to this meeting.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So with me now, I have Mr. Will Reed from Ford & Associates, and we're here to talk about the TAN, or the tax anticipation note, which is basically a short-term cash flow, a short-term loan to help with cash flow. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Reed to say a few words, and then we'll take any questions.
Madam Superintendent, members of the board, the item that will come before you will be the approval of the tax anticipation note, Series 2014. This is a common type of short-term borrowing done by Florida school districts around the state. You've seen a number of districts, including Charlotte, Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, St. Lucie, Leon County, all do similar financings. It tends to be common in districts that receive a large percentage of their revenues coming from property taxes. So it's basically a cash flow management tool. The borrowing that we're anticipating has a not-to-exceed net interest rate of 30 basis points. We are expecting that number to come in well less than that. The indicative rates that we've received from a number of banks range anywhere from 13 basis points to 15 or 16. So we expect to come in well below that not-to-exceed, but we want to make sure that you as a board have the ability to say, this is the maximum that we're willing to approve. If it's beyond that, we will not approve that. The amount that we're looking to borrow is $40 million, and the way that we came up with that number was looking at the district's cash flows. And this is limited purely to the general fund. And as we go down and look at the cash flows, this year in particular, the way that the Thanksgiving holiday falls right at the end of the year pushes your last payroll up to before your tax receipts come in. So you end up with a large payment coming in after you've already made your payment, after you've already made your last payroll. This borrowing is strictly as an insurance policy to make sure that your payroll can be made timely. These funds would then be used to pay your general fund expenditures first. Once your tax receipts come in, those funds will then be set aside. Your tax receipts will be set aside. And at that point, we anticipate that the interest that you will earn on those funds that you have already set aside for payment of the note will end up covering the majority of the cost of the borrowing, inclusive of cost of issuance.
Okay. Any questions? No? Okay.
This will be coming forward to you all this evening for approval. You heard Mr. Reed just talk about the timing of this and why it's crucial, so you'll see that this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Atkins is back again.
Just 1 second, I'll pull up the presentation. Okay, good afternoon again, board members. Today I want to just talk to you briefly about FY contract and salary schedules. The first piece is, and I just have to say this to you, I really appreciate that as a board and as a superintendent that you made compensation a priority. And that has a tremendous impact for me as a chief negotiator and the bargaining units. And you started out and you set aside 3%, and that makes all the difference in the world because it sends a clear message of where your priorities are. And that's whether it's teachers in a classroom or bus operators, which ultimately are the front line for our students. So I just have to say that. In addition to the 3% that was set aside, there was approximately $3 million that was dedicated through the bargaining process from folks who opt out of our benefits. In other words, we had about 523 folks this year, and that pattern has been pretty steady over the years, that opt out of our medical benefits. So that equates to a little over $3.3 million. Now, we do pay them approximately $25 per check, so you factor that money out, it leaves about $3 million left, and that $3 million was spread over the different bargaining units and the salary schedules based on FTE. So that gave us an additional $3 million to put toward the overall compensation package, which equates to about $5.1 million if you look at what's set aside for SPALC, TALC, and salary schedule N. So breaking it down, TALC is our largest group, and of course one of the factors here is also the average salary within the group. So that's about 62.6%. The percentage per employee, it's about 3.5%, but I have to caution everybody about the use of this term because of the way Senate Bill 736 breaks it out, which I'll show you in a moment. The percentage per employee is not going to be 3.5%. This is 3.5% for the salary schedule itself. So how it affects a teacher, an individual teacher, is very different per teacher. And I'll show you that in a minute. Spalk, this came to about $4.1 million. So it's about 25% of the group. 4.1% was the increase. And that was, of course, ratified by really an extraordinary amount. And I have to compliment Jamie and Suzanne Rudd and all the bargaining unit for getting out and doing a great job on the vote. They had over 3,000 that participated, and it was less than 2% that said no. So everyone else, 98.7% said yes. So an overwhelming yes for their contract. So that will be coming forward to you this evening. The supervisory, technical, and confidential, about $891,000. Again, this is done by numbers. That's why you don't have as much money. About 5.5% of the total for a 3.6% salary schedule enhancement, which I'll talk about later. And the difference between SPALC and N, that question sometimes comes up. The reason for that is you originally had 3% set aside for all groups that as your priority, and then you took the money that came from that $3 million that came out of the option to decline benefits, and you spread that based on FTE. So the average earner in SPALC, the base salary is less than the average earner in salary schedule N, and therefore there would be a difference. So it makes a bigger impact to your SPALC employee than it would your N employee. But it's still significant, I think, for N. 3.6% is a healthy increase. These numbers are the way they're put together is if we did something similar to administrators, those percentages to the total would be as if we did something similar to administrators, but we'll come to you with that at a later time. Now, TALC salary schedules. We have reached a tentative agreement with TALC. Here's what it looks like. You have 2 salary schedules now that are required in the law. 736 requires a grandfathered salary schedule and a performance salary schedule. And as of July 1st, 2014, everybody on an annual contract has to be on the performance salary schedule. So that's what we have. Annual and probationary contract teachers. They have base adjustments for folks who have a rating of highly effective or effective. And this is the greatest allowable adjustment to base. You remember me probably talking about that. They have to have the largest adjustment, and if you're highly effective on the performance schedule. The grandfather schedule, on the other hand, currently includes professional service contract and continuing contract teachers, and the base adjustment for them is for folks that have a highly effective or an effective rating. And if they want to, they will have an option to elect to go on the performance schedule. They would have to give up a CC or a PSC to do that. And that election process will occur in March of this year. All right, so what does it look like then in terms of the increases? And this is why you shouldn't say 3.5% because it's different for different people. If you're on the grandfather salary schedule, and you received an effective manager's evaluation, your pay increase will be $1,463. If you're highly effective on the grandfather schedule, again, $1,463, and that's because Senate Bill 736. The performance salary schedule, if you're effective, $1,463. If it's highly effective on the performance schedule, it's $1,950. It's because if you're on the grandfather schedule or if you're effective on the performance schedule, you can make only up to 0.75% of what the person who is rated as highly effective on the performance schedule can make. So the largest increase to the base salary has to be that highly effective on the performance schedule. This is retroactive back to July 1st, 2014, and will be paid with the first paycheck at the new rate. So they will receive their new rate of pay and also their retroactive pay. That's the same thing that we're going to do with SPALC. Now, how about teachers new to the district? If a teacher is new to the district, they may or may not have an evaluation. If you're a brand new teacher right out of college, you came here on step 1, you're making $38,192. Those folks, however, would be bumped up to $39,000. So, about an $800 raise. Teachers with an effective or highly effective evaluation from another Florida public school, including charter, would be eligible to receive a salary increase pending an evaluation verification. The reason it's a Florida public or charter school is that Florida law requires a rating of effective and highly effective. You can't get that necessarily from another state. So we do accept these evaluations if they're from a Florida public school or a charter school. And that verification process will take place in January, and then those people will receive the raise if they are eligible, the remainder of the raise. How do teachers on the grandfather schedule elect to move to the performance salary schedule? Probably not going to get a lot of that this year in particular, but again, we will hold that in March. They'll be eligible for the difference between the grandfather schedule increase and the highly effective performance increase of the performance schedule for the current year. So, for example, if I have a highly effective rating, I'm a teacher, I'm a PSC teacher, I have a highly effective rating, I'm going to receive, on the grandfather schedule, I'm going to receive a raise of $1,463. If I decide in March to switch schedules, then I will receive another $487, and I will have to give up my professional service contract in order to do that, and then from that point forward, I will be on an annual contract. So this year, it's $487. That could change and probably will change in other years, but that's what it is this year. Okay?
Any questions, board members?
No.
Well, thank you for a successful conclusion to a very lengthy, arduous process of defining what's effective, highly effective to the union, also for your participation in all of the negotiations that went into the development of this new schedule. So it was a lot of work. Thank you.
I just have a couple other things I want to add. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Career ladder, the elements, teacher leader, $10,000, mentor teacher, $800. Now the mentor teacher, we're going district-wide this year. Okay, so instead of just being at the teacher incentive fund schools, it's going to be at all of our schools. Remember, peer teacher was only $325. The responsibilities weren't as great. Mentor teacher, we really think this is going to help us with our teacher retention, and so we're going to take this district-wide. Difficult to staff schools, we have 5 of them. You will receive up to $4,000 there, and we predict it'll be very close to $4,000. And in addition, you'll get difficult to staff subject of up to $1,000. And then quickly, the SPALC salary schedule, very similar, 4.1%. They ratified, just ratified. There's no step progression here, but every person would receive here you can talk about the percentage, because every person will receive a 4.1% increase to their base pay, and that will be retroactive back to July 1st, 2014. We did put in some required clinic training. This is important, and you'll have a job description coming forward in the near future about this. And a couple other quick things, movement of the bus operator week, the meeting with the principal from 6 weeks to 3 weeks. That's to discuss discipline. And then this is just a good practice, evidence of counseling with an employee who receives a rating of an I or a U on the evaluation, so that it shows, you did discuss with this person on such and such a date regarding their performance prior to giving them an I or a U that just shows up on the evaluation. Important dates, we have ratified. We are coming forward with a good cause with the SPALC contract this evening, and we are also bringing salary schedule in forward this evening. TALC's ratification vote will be on October 28th and 29th with a assumed November board ratification if we're successful. Supervisory technical, 3.6% salary schedule enhancement. The only real changes here were we updated the schedule to reflect new and revised job descriptions, and we aligned the probationary period from 60 days to 12 months, which is similar to TALC and SPALC. And that is the conclusion of the presentation.
Okay, now,
Thank you.
any questions? No?
Thank you.
Then I just reiterate, great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Pruitt and Ms. McFarland on employee insurance for the 2015 plan year. Welcome.
Good afternoon, board members. Dr. Graham. I want to begin with a quick disclaimer. I will never in the future have any handouts. The reason that I did that today is because there's quite a large volume of information, and so I wanted you to have the opportunity to make some notes around specific items in case you had them so that I could address those. But please feel free to stop me during any part of this presentation. I have Bonnie McFarland with me who, if I can't answer it, then she's going to answer it. So the first thing I want to say is that in the short time that I've been in this position, I have to say I've been quite impressed with the Insurance and Benefits Department and with Bonnie and all of her employees, and also with the participants of the Insurance Task Force that have helped make some of these very difficult decisions and recommendations and wade through all of the information and taken a lot of time to do so. I would like to thank Donna and Jamie. They're part of that group and have been very helpful. And I would also like to thank Mrs. Fisher for stepping in at our last meeting. Kind of a lot of information at one time, but we definitely appreciate you being there and providing some input. First up, just so you can kind of see who the members of the committee are. These are the folks that, like I said, have been through this and have helped us through this process. And as we move through this agenda, I really want you to think of it as three very distinct pieces. And piece one is going to be talking about those items that are part of the benefit package that employees are fully responsible for paying for. Then the second big piece is going to be the who administers our plan and what we're going to do there moving forward, or the recommendation. And then the third piece are the structure of the rates and how that works. So it's really three major parts to this presentation. So what we wanted to do is take you through the pieces of the benefits that the employees pay for, starting with the cancer and specified disease insurance. And this just kind of captures for you that the current contract had went out to proposal in April of 2012. The length of that contract is 5 years. Currently, we have 2,592 employees that are taking advantage of that. Again, it's an employee-paid benefit, and that will be renewed for, our recommendation will be that it renews for 1 year, and the rates will stay the same. The dental insurance, that was effective April 1st, 2012, again, a 5-year contract. Current enrollment, 8,196 employees. And in this particular situation, we have 3 dental options. And so for the HMO, the rates will remain the same. And then for the others, it will be a 3% increase. And I think it's important to note here that if we were looking at the costs and what it should be, we have a good deal based on our utilization of the plan. So the fact that we're being able to hold that at 3% is a good thing, because the utilization was quite high, which is a good thing. It means that our employees are getting those dental checkups and doing what they need to do. So that's the state of the current dental program, and our recommendation will be to continue that for one. Yes.
Mrs. Dozier has a question.
All right, in talking about dental insurance, it says the RFP award effective April the 1st, 2012. So are we keeping the current dental insurance that we have?
Yes, ma'am.
So when was the first year that we awarded that insurance to this company that we are with now?
The current dental? April 2012.
Okay, it seems like it was a lot longer ago than that. Okay. This board gave direction to a previous superintendent that we would go out again for an RFP for dental insurance.
Okay.
I would like to know why we are not following that directive. You changed seats, but the directives of the board does not change.
I am not aware of that directive.
Well, this board voted to direct the superintendent to go out for an RFP in dental insurance. And last year, when we came to talk about insurance, we talked about it again, that we weren't going out for an RFP, and we got, we were told that, oh, we can't do it because we don't have enough time and so forth and so on. And now here we are again, and, I know that employees have been very upset. We've had employees that literally dropped the dental insurance. So is there a reason why we are not following the board's directive?
I don't have a response for that.
Ms. McFarland has a response to that.
I apologize if there was a lot of discussion around dental, absolutely. I do not recall, I recall a number of board members requesting that, but I don't recall it being a request of the entire board.
Excuse me just 1 minute. Could we get Ms. Johnson to look up the board meeting minutes when we gave the superintendent directive that we were to go out for an RFP?
Ms. Dozier, do you have a date when that might have occurred?
No, I don't have a date, but they can search it.
Mr. Armstrong, you want to make a comment?
Yeah. Not only do I remember exactly what Ms. Dozier was saying, because she's correct. I know this board did give a direction, but last year we also gave a direction to look to find that date and to bring it back to this board. And the reason that I'm actually siding with her on this is because just recently I've been told by several different people they're not real happy with this dental insurance. I think that's
I'm real hot about this. I'm not talking to you.
I'm not talking
sorry.
to you.
Somebody asked me a question over here, and I was trying to answer.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be.
I believe that because we did give a direction at the time to go out for the RFP, it is our due diligence that we do it. I don't want to see it come back to us until we've actually done the job, what this board's direction was. So I do agree with Ms. Dozier. We need to look at this, and we need to look at it now before it continues to move forward and just another year goes by.
I will take responsibility for seeing when that date was and looking into what needs to happen. I don't want Dr. Pruitt or Ms. McFarland to get beat up on this. I do want to note, though, that the current enrollment of our dental insurance is over 8,000 of the 10,000 employees. So I remember a conversation last year, and I remember Insurance and Benefits coming back and sharing what the concerns were and how the company had addressed those concerns, and that it seemed to be going along well. I don't remember last year being asked to go out to do an RFP. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. I have no recollection of that. I can't imagine us ignoring it if there was clear direction to do that. So we'll get the date and we'll look at that, and if we need to proceed, then that's what we will do. So Ms. McFarland, Dr. Pruitt.
Ms. Fisher, you have a comment?
Yeah, just before Dr. Graham said that, I was going to ask what is the usage and satisfaction rate of the current Humana plan now? Because I remember the previous plan had a 97% satisfaction rate, and then we had a lot of feedback from employees. So I'm assuming then that the problems that existed as far as participating dentists, et cetera, have been resolved. And so what's the percentage now of employee usage and satisfaction?
As Dr. Pruitt mentioned, we have about 9,200 or 8,200 employees who participate in this. That number is higher as a percentage and as a number than our prior vendor at the time that we left them. Additionally, our utilization under the PPO plans was approximately 91% for this last review period. And based on that being a fully insured product, the actual call for the increase was a 9.5%. The reason you see a 3% on the board here is that part of the contract when it was negotiated in 2012 were some rate caps that prevented the insurance from increasing beyond the 3%. So as a result of that utilization, the called for increase would have been that 9.5%, but based on our contract rate cap, it's being held at the 3%. Additionally, for the 16-17 plan year, they have proposed the 3% rate cap as well. So that doesn't obligate us to continue into the 16-17 plan year. It just says that if we do, these rates are then again capped at that 3%. So there is a lot of utilization of the plan, as Dr. Pruitt mentioned.
Okay, and that's an annual cap? Correct. Okay, up through the 5-year contract?
Correct.
Okay.
And I was reminded by Ms. Michael that the Insurance Task Force did review and have conversation around the RFP issue. So if necessary, I can gather that information for the future. Can I move on at this point, or would you?
Please.
Okay. So the next item is the short-term disability, and that contract began on April 1st, 2013 for 5 years. Current enrollment in that is 3,376 employees. On this one, again, we look at the utilization rate, and due to how much employees are really utilizing that 14-day elimination period, that utilization is 119%. So in order to balance that out, there will be a rate increase for the short-term disability with the 14-day period. And that was just a matter of balancing out, because our utilization was so low on the 60-day, rather than reduce the 60-day rate and increase the 14-day rate, they balanced it out. And so the recommendation will be to approve that. And then next item is the vision insurance, and that contract began on April 1st, 2009, and we currently have 7,155 employees enrolled in that. There was a market check done this past year to look at the plan and see how it was comparative to other opportunities out there. 13 companies were contacted, and 9 of them gave us a response. And then from those 9, 4 were selected for further review and for interviewing. And the current plan was unanimously selected, and there will be a rate reduction on that based on, again, looking at the utilization and what is offered to the employees. So the recommendation there will be to award that contract moving forward for 1 more year.
So you said there's going to be a rate reduction, though? By what? How much?
1.3%.
So what is the utilization of that employee?
My glasses back on.
Okay, sorry.
It's on the slide.
I don't have that one handy.
That one.
We'll get it for you in
Is
just
that
1
vision?
second. Yes.
7,155 is what's on the slide.
I think she wanted the percentage of
No, that's okay, the usage, yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. I didn't see that on here.
So the next part of this is looking at who administers our insurance. Again, this is not the plan itself. This is simply who is going to oversee and administer the current insurance that we are offering our employees. This doesn't have to do with the pricing of it, what types of plans. This is simply who is going to oversee it and who is going to implement our insurance and who is going to implement our pharmacy benefit program. So currently we have 10,015 employees that are enrolled in one of our health plans, and the board contribution per employee is currently $6,372. So the employee that's the amount of money that the district puts towards the employee's insurance. So what we have to look at, because that amount has remained static, we have to look at what we can buy with those dollars, and keeping in mind about what it's going to cost the employee, and all of those kinds of factors go into consideration. So an RFP was issued in April of 2014. Responses were due by the end of May. Meetings were held the week of July 21st, and then the finalists were interviewed that last week in July. So there were 2 companies that gave us proposals for administering our health plan, and there were 4 that responded for the pharmacy benefit management. The kinds of things that went into consideration for that were net cost considerations, the design of the plan and what the added values are, the service capabilities, what if any disruption would there be if there was any changes made, the flexibility, how we were able to work with the vendors. And the finalists for the third-party administration was Aetna and Florida Blue, and for the pharmacy it was Aetna and Caremark. So the recommendation was to go with Aetna for the third-party administration and for the pharmacy benefit management. They had a proposed lower administrative fee than the current third-party administrator. They were willing to and are going to put some serious emphasis on the wellness, and there's some discount guarantees and performance guarantees. They're going to provide an on-site representative and an on-site nurse, which will be new for us and will help us in moving forward with our wellness initiative. The estimated savings going with this third-party administrator will be $12 million over a 5-year period. $400,000 of that funding will go directly towards wellness, which includes that on-site nurse. Employees will be eligible for a $50 cash incentive for their health account, and it's going to really incentivize them to participate in some of those wellness classes. And if the third-party administrator does not live up to the performance guarantees that they've given us, then that will result in an average of a 19.8% back to us if they don't meet their performance guarantees. And then the terms of it would be guaranteed renewable through 2024. Aetna was unanimously selected and recommended as the third-party administrator and pharmacy benefit manager for a 5-year contract term, renewable for 2 additional 2-year terms. So the recommendation is to award the third-party administration and pharmacy benefit management to Aetna.
Mrs. Dozier?
Okay. How many years have we been with Blue Cross Blue Shield?
We were fully insured with them from 04 to 06, and in 06 we issued an RFP and went back to self-insurance. So we have been in a self-insured arrangement with them since 2006.
Okay, so we have had Blue Cross Blue Shield since 2006.
As a self-insured, as a third-party administrator, yes. So they were a fully insured vendor for us from 04 to 06 for medical, and then we went to bid and brought in 06 an ASO arrangement, which is where we currently are with Blue Cross and what's being proposed to move to Aetna.
Okay, so my question is, now we're moving to Aetna. You know, we went to... Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't know what this was. All right. We are currently with Blue Cross. We are going to Aetna. All right, as far as the premiums for our employees, what is the difference going to be in the premiums that an employee had with Aetna, or excuse me, with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and what they are going to have with Aetna? And what will the coverage be the same?
So because they just administer the plan, part 3 of my presentation, which will be next, will be what you were just asking me. What are the plans? How do they compare? Because the plans are separate from the administration of the plans. So I will answer those questions for you on this third part, or I can just jump right to it if you want to, and I can share with you the recommendation is that there won't be a change. There will be an addition of a third option for employees, a third plan they can choose from, but there will not be a change to the 2 current plans that we have.
Okay. All right. We had, before last year, we had 3 plans that were offered, and then because of the cost, we pared it down to 2 plans, I think, that were offered to employees last year. So now we're going back to 3 plans again with a different insurance carrier. And you asked me, could you have a conversation with me? And I don't know if you want to have it at the table today. Well, another discussion that this board had when we were sitting right down there in the pit, we had the last discussion we had around looking at a health clinic. I think that we are doing a good job with our wellness program, but I think I'm not sure that it is all that it can be. And when you look across America, there is a reason why large organizations and large companies are going to clinics, on-site clinics. And I have been beating this drum now for 8 years. And when I said we were sitting down there, I remember there were 5 board members sitting down there, and we said, well, why aren't we doing this? Mm-hmm. The health clinic. Exactly. And here we are today, and we still don't have a health clinic. It's like I don't understand what the resistance is, because I get phone calls from Charlotte County. Guess what? Our premiums just got reduced, or we maintained our premiums and we're able to give back blah, blah, blah. Then I have another person across the state call me, and they all attribute it to the fact that they have these on-site clinics. We've had a reduction in teachers being out of school for having to go to doctors because we have an on-site clinic that's on after hours and on Saturday. All these different benefits that they have. So again, we gave direction again that we wanted to see. We wanted you to move forward and come back with a recommendation to the board. And I know that I don't see Dr. Atkins in here, but there he is. Dr. Atkins was the one that was sitting down there when this direction was given. I have, since I have been on this board, I have wrestled with insurance, and I realize that costs go up. I realize that there's a lot of factors that go into that, and it's our responsibility to do everything that we can to try to reduce or maintain costs for our employees. When I hear an employee tell me that they are working and then they end up having to pay money to the district just to hold insurance, I really have a problem with that. And if there's any way that we can help that employee by reducing their costs, the co-pays have gone, I've seen those co-pays go out, absolutely out of sight. So I don't understand what the resistance is when I hear all these other entities, from the sheriff's department to all these other entities that have put in clinics, and it's very effective for the employees. It doesn't have any negative factors, and yet we just keep getting pushback from staff. I don't understand that.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Graham. I understand there's history, and you and I have had this conversation, and I pulled an item from tonight's agenda so that I could bring back the full wellness plan. I would like direction from the board on 2 things. We got the minutes from the meeting, and there was discussion, and I said I wasn't aware of the RFP directive. I'd look into it, which I did, and all the news was positive, and that was shared with the board about the dental plan. The issues that they limped along at the beginning were good. But I need to know from the board right now, do you want an RFP for dental? Though we have a 5-year contract, Mr. Martin says there's probably language in there that we can leave if we need to. I need to know if we want to go for an RFP for dental, and I want to tell you that right now there is no resistance from leadership about pursuing what it would take to add a clinic. It is part of the wellness vision that we have, and that's why I pulled the item for tonight so that we could bring that back at one time. So I think I need direction from the board right now.
Okay, well,
what it is you want.
All right, let's talk about the dental first.
Okay.
And Mrs. Dozier, you have your hand up.
Well, I have on employee insurance, I have some minutes from November the 5th, 2013.
Right, that's what I just shared. that we did talk about it, and
Okay.
I said I'd look into it, and then we looked at what I looked into was how things had changed and turned around, and never got any further direction. So now I'm asking for direction. If we need to work to break the contract based on, and again, I'm just going to point out the percentage and the usage is high, but since the board made that directive somewhere along the way and it still seems to be an irritant, I just need to hear from the whole board what you want me to do.
Other board members, Mr. Armstrong?
Sure, I'll weigh on that. Look, I've heard some district employees lately and complain about our dental insurance. Matter of fact, I got a letter from my own dentist saying he's no longer using it. That's the same complaint I hear from different people as well. You know, and I think we should never be stuck with one dental insurance for a lengthy time. I think it's always in our best interest after a few years to go out and see where the market's at. Maybe they do come back to best again, but why tire ourselves? Why not try to go out there? Maybe there's a better plan out there, a cheaper plan. You know, it is our responsibility. So yeah, I would agree with going out right now and looking. There's nothing that says we have to take it, but we do have a due diligence to do that for our employees, to see if we can get a better deal and cheaper.
Mrs. Fisher?
Well, when we discussed this just a few minutes ago, and you said that the usage now is 91%. With the prior provider, it was 97%, if I remember correctly. I guess my concern would be the time and cost involved in doing the RFP, and then, you know, do we have a way of putting out feelers to see if, in fact, there's a potential for a much better deal? Or do we have to go right to RFP? I myself would need to be able to read through some of this and refresh my memory about the information. But is that a possibility, that there's some information out there globally that we could access to know if it would be, in fact, worth the investment? You know, would there be a return on investment if we invest the time and money into doing the RFP?
We could begin with a market check and then move into an RFP if that's the direction of the board.
Well, I think we need to take it a step at a time and not to do that until we are fairly certain that there's a good reason for that at this point in time, since we do have a higher usage now. And I don't know if also there's a way of polling the employees as far as their satisfaction. Yeah, we have the 91% usage, that's good, but is there a satisfaction rate attached to that?
And I would say that I'm happy to see you do a market watch, but it sounds to me like from a financial point of view, we have a pretty good plan in place, and so unless there's a problem with employee satisfaction with that plan, I think I would be loath at this point to encourage us to go down that long road. So
The direction is to do a market watch.
Yes.
Does everybody agree to that?
Yes.
And a satisfaction survey from the users of the plan?
Yep.
Ms. Dozier, are you in agreement with that?
Well, I know that there were people here that came to this board that spoke repeatedly about the dental insurance plan. And we gave them our word that we would put an RFP out and that we would rectify what had been done with us going with Humana. Many people chose not to, many people dropped the dental insurance. Number one, because of the misrepresentation of the networks that were available. There are people sitting right here in this room that the previous dental carrier, their dentists were covered, and yet when we got the new insurance, it was a smaller carrier group of, a smaller network.
My understanding is, as a result of all the, and this is, this was before I got here, but when we had this conversation last year, many of those things were rectified. And thus the increase in the percentage of people that are now using the plan, because I understand there were some issues in the beginning. I think those have been resolved. But if I'm trying to honor what the board wants to do. I'm concerned about doing an RFP if.
Well, I think you have your answer. The answer is most of us want to do a market watch, and we want an employee satisfaction, and then we're willing to entertain a conversation again when we have that information.
Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Armstrong?
I would be agreement. As long as there's a time certain on that, I don't want it to drag out another year either.
No, it won't. You won't. I don't know how long it takes to do a market watch. Bonnie?
It wouldn't take a great deal of time, a month or maybe 6 weeks to do that. My concern is open enrollment is around the corner, and the timeliness in getting to a resolution before we need to begin rolling out open enrollment materials to our employees.
Okay, so when is open enrollment?
The meetings around open enrollment are in January. The actual open enrollment itself is in February, and those plans take effect 4/1.
So what? Oh, go ahead.
What's the quickest you can get us the information the board's asking for?
I would say 30 days. I would see if I could do it faster than that, but I hesitate to commit to that at the table.
And what is the time frame for an RFP?
60?
Much longer. Jamie said 6 months. That's probably a little long, but probably 4 to 6 months to do a full-blown RFP. It would have to be drafted and then sent out to the carriers and then evaluated, and then we have a process with the ITF and the board.
So what I'm hearing is that even if we do the market watch and we have to go to an RFP, we may have to live with this dental plan for one more year, correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
That would be my advice, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I think probably what we would do then is simply ask that sometime after the first of the year, after the new plan, after the plan rollover, that you come back with a market watch at that point so that we can anticipate if we want to do an RFP for the subsequent year, we've got our ducks in a row at that point. So does that maybe maybe February, we have the market watch and we have a customer satisfaction report, and that doesn't interfere with your enrollment, and it sets us up, if we want to do something, we're in a position to do it for the following year.
And we can begin work on that right away.
I understand that. You wouldn't have to report to us or...
So we'll put that on a February briefing?
Yeah.
Okay. And I have forgotten now what the second thing even was that we talked about.
Oh, we were going to talk about the clinic. But I'm going to just let them finish their presentation on the plan, and then we can talk about the clinic.
So the third part of this presentation has to do with the actual plans themselves and where we are today, again, based on that 6372 that the board puts towards each employee. The goal each year is to find what we can closest to a break-even point and find getting the best bang for the buck, so to speak, so that we have the best plan that we can offer the employees. I am very happy to report that, and I'm going to unofficially say I attribute it to the huge success of the wellness initiative in the district, that the amount of money paid in and the amount of claims paid out, that we ended up on the positive side of that by about $5 million. So I do believe that the work that the department and Bonnie have done and the wellness initiatives have had a positive impact as it relates to less claims that we're having to pay for. Basically, it's as simple as there's going to be no rate change to the current two plans, and then there's an addition of a third plan that is going to initiate those health savings account, and it's a plan that will have a high deductible, but still has your wellness options that the employee can utilize. And I would say this is probably a really great deal for your younger families, younger employees who may hedge their bets and think they're going to be pretty healthy, because what they're going to get is a contribution to a health savings account, and that can add up year after year. So it's a good additional third option. And just being new to this, I'm excited about that. There's an option out there that we can offer that will tie into our whole benefit package that we're offering to employees. The way that we are able to hold these rates for this upcoming year is due to the medical reserve account that we have, and that money, the savings that we saw by having less claims, we're going to utilize that savings of approximately $5 million and put that towards this plan, so that the employees are not going to be paying any additional money out of pocket for insurance for the next year. And then, of course, we will revisit that in a year's time. But so really, to capture it, it's no change, just an addition of a third plan and third option for employees.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mrs. Dozier.
Okay, you say that there's no increase to the employee, but we are taking money out of the reserves to subsidize the plan so that there will not be any increases.
That's correct.
So if we didn't take any money out of the reserves, then there would be an increase.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, this is with the new company that we have.
That has nothing to do with the company. It wouldn't matter whether it was Blue Cross, whether it was Aetna. The plan is different from the person who administers the plan. So that would be what it is, regardless if it was Aetna or Blue Cross. Aetna and or Blue Cross is simply the person who administers the plan, processes everything, helps us with the claims, and supports us. The plans themselves, we take that 6372 and we look at, okay, what can we buy with that 6372? What are the best options we can buy? And so the two are, and that's why I was trying to break it out into those three pieces, because they're separate things.
Okay, all right, then help a little old country girl that doesn't understand.
Okay.
You say that it would be the same because we're using this money out of the reserves. Then why are we changing carriers?
Because they're administering the plan in a more comprehensive way that benefits us. They are providing us with an on-site nurse. They're providing the incentive to employees to participate in our wellness programs. So they're offering us more bells and whistles, and which will result in about a $12 million savings over a 5-year period.
Okay, so how long do we get these bells and whistles without an additional cost?
Well,
how long did they guarantee us to have this cost? Because what I see is us going from one to the other, because of cost. It's like flip-flopping back and forth. So how long did they give us a guarantee for what they're giving us right now?
It's a 5-year contract. But we will have to, in a year, revisit what are the plans. If the board still chooses to put 6372 towards insurance, what can we buy with that 6372?
But that has nothing to do with the carrier.
Correct.
Right. Or the administrator.
It won't matter whether it's Aetna or somebody else.
Mr. Armstrong.
I just want to make a few statements. Ladies, I do want to appreciate you coming here, giving us this presentation, and the time you gave me yesterday morning talking to you about this. It helped me understand a lot of things. But on that note, there is something I do want to stress. I've sat up here time and time again and said this. I believe that the board should contribute some more to our district employees. I believe we have not looked at that since 2007. Is that correct? We're lagging way behind. There's other municipalities out there that offer more. We continue to talk about being competitive. That is part that we need to be competitive. You know, Ms. Dozier said it best. I know I have employees out there right now that are working just to pay for their insurance. And if they miss a day, they owe money. I have an issue with that. You know, these employees count on this board to continue to work very hard on their behalf and work with their reps. And I think it's about time that we stand up as a board and start looking at some of the things. And again, not a bad thing, it's a good thing. We've talked about the wellness clinic before. Matter of fact, since I've been on this board, I'm quite frankly, I just want it done. I've even gone and looked at plans of how we would do it, and it's still not done. It's time we look out for our employees, step up, and be the world-class system for our employees as well. So I think, in my eyes, we got a couple little issues, well, large issues actually, we need to address. We need to look at this wellness center and get it moving forward. I listened to a lot of board members in Palm Beach talk to me about it and brag about some of the ones they had, and it made me a little jealous. Why aren't we doing it? What's going on here? We have the capability. It's about time that we step up and do what's best for these employees. We've seen the paperwork. Ms. Dozier, I don't know how many times you've brought documentation upon documentation here to this board and shown us where it will help. So I'm in favor of this, and it's time that we go ahead and move forward instead of just waiting for it to happen itself. Thank you.
Okay, so I hear two questions. One is the board interested in having a conversation about increasing the board contribution? And we want to have a conversation about clinics. Do we want to do that at the same time we're talking about the dental plan? Do we want to just have one briefing in February where we roll out all of these conversations?
We can do that. I was going to do wellness sooner, but it's your call.
Well, okay, if you're ready to do it sooner. But I was just...
If you want to do it all at the same time, we can do it in February. It's entirely up to you.
Mrs. Fisher.
Well, I think, I just want to make a couple of points. I think our wellness program obviously has had a positive impact on the district because we have had less claims filed and less payouts. So we actually have like a surplus in the medical plan reserve fund. And then my understanding is that we are using some of that to offset the cost of the high deductible health plan. And can you explain to me about the HSA, how that fits into that?
When employees utilize that high deductible plan, $1,000 is put into a health savings account for them to utilize. And so as a result of that, they can continue each year to build up that money that they can utilize, which really is a great benefit if they stay healthy and they don't have, it's kind of, well, I mean, it's a good benefit. And it can continue. And you know how what they have those flex saving accounts where you put money in, but if you don't use it by this time, it goes away. They don't work that way. This is a separate type of account, and it's of great benefit to the employee.
Right. Now that money, that HSA money, then can be used to offset the out-of-pocket cost of copays.
Correct.
So, because, you know, we do have people who are hesitant to visit their doctor because, oh my gosh, the copays are really high now. So that looks like a very good benefit to that because
Correct.
just by signing up for the the high deductible health plan. People will get $1,000 to use to offset those other costs.
Correct.
And then, did I understand you correctly the other night when you talked about the money rolling over annually? It's not lost at the end of the year.
That's correct.
Like the flexible spending used to. And additionally, then people who don't use that money can do something else with it?
The money in the health savings account can both earn interest and or be invested similar to like a 401k type plan. And once an employee is age 65 or older, any money in that account can not only be used for their medical expenses, that it can be used at any point in their life, but after age 65, it can also be used to pay medical premiums. So pre-65, you can't pay premiums with it, but post-65, you can.
Okay, and then that'll bring me to another question before we get to increasing the board contribution, and that is, how does this apply to our retirees who are paying us currently for insurance?
The retirees would pay the rates that you see on that last sheet, but would not be eligible for the $1,000 because that $1,000 is coming out of the board contribution, and retirees do not receive the board contribution.
Right.
So they would be able to participate in this plan, but it would be at the rates listed on that sheet with no contribution to the HSA.
Okay.
Sure, answer it.
Okay. And then I guess my last question would be, and I think I started to ask this the other night at the meeting, but why are we not increasing our board contribution when it's been the same for 7 years?
That would be a question for the board.
And
Okay.
maybe we add that to whenever we have this meeting in February, begin that conversation.
Well, the question is, do you want to bring the wellness, do you want to treat the medical and the clinic and the board contribution earlier then? You said you were thinking about bringing something forward earlier, and then we could do the dental in February?
That'd be fine.
What was the approximate date you were thinking of bringing forward?
I thought before the holidays, so either the last meeting in November or the first one in December.
Okay.
I need to look at those two
Yeah.
and see how the agendas look right now.
Okay. I've got it down. Okay, thank you.
And I would like to see that happen because we need to keep the wellness momentum.
So that will be
going.
both, we will talk both about the board contribution and the clinic, in addition to anything that Dr. Graham is planning to bring forward already. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Armstrong.
And this is for Mr. Martin. As far as the board contribution, does it have to go to bargaining?
Yes,
Or
sir.
can, okay.
It's part of negotiations.
Okay. Any final questions, comments, board members?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have Fort Myers Prep and Fitness.
Yes, and Mrs. Coots is representing me at the Ford Next Generation Learning session that's happening right now in Louisville. So Dr. McCullers is going to introduce our charter school guests.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. McCullers.
Good afternoon, board members. Thank you for having us here this afternoon. As Dr. Graham explained, I'm here on behalf of Ms. Coots, who had to be out of state. And I'm here with my entourage today, who are the representatives of Fort Myers Preparatory and Fitness Academy. What we're doing today is complying with Florida statute and a provision in the charter that you issued to Fort Myers Prep and Fitness. And that requirement is that when a charter school earns a grade of D or F, they're required to do two things. They're required to complete a school improvement plan, which the school has completed, and they're required to appear before the school board and present it. And that's what we're doing today.
Okay.
My understanding is that the plan itself will come to you on October 21st, and that'll be the second part. The first part is the presentation today. So I'll turn it over to Mr. McCabe with the school's governing board.
Good afternoon. This is our sixth year in operation. We're located at 4740 South Cleveland, which is just south of Colonial on the west side of 41 in the old, you may remember the old Robin Stuckey warehouse building. This is our third year in that location. We are a Title IX school with nearly 84% with free and reduced lunch, and we have nearly 300 students in grades K through 8. We do have an extended class period day from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., which includes 1 full hour of physical education each day. I've been on the board. This is my fourth year on the board, and this is our second year with our new management company. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Craig Knotts from Celerity, Florida, who represents our management company.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Board, for having us here today. My name is Craig Knotts. I'm with the Celerity Florida Group. Our organization actually started a long time ago, about 10 years ago, in Southern California. We started with one school in a low-income area of the Crenshaw district of Los Angeles, kindergarten through 8th grade. It's now one of the highest performing schools in the country. We educate close to a little over 6,000 students in California, Ohio, Louisiana, and Florida. We took over management of three preparatory and fitness academies. This is our second year, a year ago. And it's been an incredible experience. Just a quick shout out to Dr. McCullers and his team we obviously interact with a lot of boards, and without a doubt, one of our best experiences in terms of operating a school and providing options and choices for families. Really, our mission and vision is particularly to have incredible educational options, very specifically for students from low-income backgrounds. That is our specialty, and that is what we thrive in, and that is why we started our schools. As Mr. McCabe mentioned, Fort Myers Prep, 90% African American and Latino. We're about 83%. We expect these numbers to go up for free and reduced lunch, making us a Title I school. Over this past year, we've put in close to $1 million into these schools in terms of professional development, raising teacher salaries and benefits, as you guys have just talked, to make sure that we have highly qualified staff, and access to the world-class education that we expect our students to have. I'm going to have Mr. Tarabinic real quick. He's the principal of Fort Myers Prep and Fitness. He's been with us for 1 year since we took over management, although he's been with the school for a little bit longer than that, and the organization and the schools a little bit longer than that. He's going to give you just a brief idea of the data prior to us coming in, and then once we have taken over this past year.
Good afternoon, board members and superintendent. This is my second year as principal at the Fort Myers Prep and Fitness Academy. Under the former management company, we were in a somewhat of a decline from year to year. As when the Celerity Management Company took over, at that point, and it was 2013, the Fort Myers Preparatory and Fitness Academy in particular, we had a score on the FCAT of 267, which at that point was the lowest score in the Lee County school districts. Within 1 year, during the 2013-14 school year, our school went up 53 points, which is quite amazing. And in addition to that, the Cape Coral and Bonita Springs schools, they both went up as well. Our Bonita Springs school actually had an advance of 182 points, which was the second highest, I believe, in the Lee County School District. So as part of our plan, a couple of things we're looking to do in the area of reading. We scored 35% proficient. We're looking to hit 42% or higher in 2015. In the area of math, we were 29% proficient, and we're looking to move that to 51% proficient or higher.
And there's different ways we plan to do this. these schools will be A schools. So I will say that to you. There's a different process, and some of the schools are going to achieve that faster than other ones. Like I said, Bonita Springs was 1 point away from being an A school. That'll happen this year. Our Cape Coral School, we're anticipating within the next year or two to be an A. Fort Myers within potentially 3 to 4 years to be an A school as well under the same program. Some of the things that are part of our school improvement plan, which are part of the Celerity model of how we plan to do this. Number one, professional learning communities are a huge piece of our model. Teachers meeting twice a week, over 100 hours annually, where they're meeting in small groups via grade level or site-based, or where we bring all 3 schools together and have professional development several times a year. We have ongoing assessments where we're assessing them on a weekly basis. Teachers are teaching a standard or concept, assessing them on a weekly basis via an online system. That information is used to then either move to the next standard for some students, or is used to reteach for students who might have not understand that certain concept or idea. So we have these ongoing assessments both on a weekly basis. Then we do every 2 months we have benchmark assessments similar to a lot of school districts. And then, of course, yearly assessments. What we like to do, though, is all these assessments leading up to help us really give a great prediction a month before we take a statewide assessment, an FCAT, for example, so that we know exactly how our students are going to achieve well before, so it's not a guessing game. And then we use that FCAT score or that state assessment score for this year as the baseline for the following year of where the expectation is every kid will improve. We make sure we have culturally relevant and responsive teaching strategies. Our teachers are trained in this throughout the entire school year, like I said, both on-site and then at a statewide or within the 3 schools professional development. And we make sure we have lots of follow-up with professional development. As you know, it's the follow-up that is so important with that. And again, that highly qualified professional development is you hear me keep saying that, but that's where we're going to put a lot of our emphasis on. Where again, teachers are analyzing data and making sure they're using that to inform their practice. So they look at that data and inform their practice and create individualized action plans for each student. And we hold our teachers and staff and everyone accountable for achieving these goals on these action plans. And so that is really what we plan to do. We've been very successful in doing this. We're excited to be part of Lee County and being an option for families, and particularly for the families that our schools are servicing. And that's what we have planned for our school improvement plan. Anyone has any questions, we would be happy to answer anything.
Questions, board members?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. It sounds like you're highly organized, like you've got the right management company now, and I look forward to seeing the results. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, seeing no other comments, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, shoot. I can't. Here.
Here's a hard copy.
Oh, thank you. Okay, good. All right. That concludes the board briefing this afternoon. Any board member comments?
I believe we have public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment? Public comment, board comments. Board members?
I'll reserve mine for this evening. Thank you.
Mrs. Dozier?
I have nothing at this time.
I have none either.
And Dr. Graham?
I just want to share some information that I will probably share again tonight, but I want you all to have it. We have spent quite a bit of time on the elementary assessment issue since the last board meeting, and I wanted to give you an update of where we are. We are having a principals meeting on Thursday just to review with all the principals who's agreed to do what. As of today, we are removing the science and social studies from the table. If teachers want to give them just because they want to give them, they can. And they will not they will not impact a child's grade in any way. And we are doing that until we have the opportunity. We're going to bring in teachers from every school next week. Every school is going to have an opportunity to bring 2 teachers that are leaders in the building in the areas that need to be reviewed. And we're going to look at all the concept tests and rework the 2 areas that are new, are the social studies and science. And they were added because we've had the expectation that teachers will use social studies and science as they work with literacy with the students. And so everywhere they're reading, we want them to be using those same strategies and skills to build the vocabulary and the understanding and comprehension of the children. However, the science and the social studies, because they're new, they are what added to the length. That was the one issue about the ELA test, was that the science and social studies section added to the length. And even though the directions were clear that they could give those parts separately, many of them chose not to. So we're pulling those off, and we're going to revisit them and rework them and have teachers go through. What they've said basically is there's 1 or 2 questions on each of those that they'd like to see gone or changed. And so we're going to work to be sure that they still cover the standards and that the level of rigor is there and the lexile is correct, et cetera, et cetera. So we will do that next week. And then we will continue to elicit feedback. And then once we believe that people are comfortable, then they will be available for use in second quarter. If those are the assessments that the teachers choose to use, they can do that. Every school, we have talked to every principal, and every school has given their teachers the choice. You may be hearing that people are being told they have to do the concept test. That is not the case. However, many teachers are choosing to use them because particularly those schools that used them last year and saw success, they're trying to avoid fixing something that they believe isn't broken or that they worked. Some have said changing right now is like trying to fix an airplane while it's in the air. And so they are choosing to use those. We've made them available. There's been no requirement. And so I just wanted you to be aware of that. The weight has not changed in any way. We reduced that significantly last year. And there will be a training for anyone who wants to change the assessment that they use. And when you all had the conversation, I said to you there will still be assessments. And so if a teacher chooses to do a different assessment, which they can, we're still asking that it be put in Performance Matters so that we can have the data. We won't be comparing apples to apples, but we will at least be able to do some comparisons. And that's important for progress monitoring. That's important for coaches. That's important for us to know how to allocate resources so that we can get the right help in the right places. And there will be training in how to input those tests if teachers do to do that. That'll be a webinar. They won't have to go anywhere. There'll be a webinar to do that, and it'll be offered 3 different times, at 3 different days at 3 different times, so that they will have the opportunity to see that. So that information has been shared with schools. We sent out the science and social studies decision today because I made it today. And I just wanted you to have that information as we move forward to this evening. And again, I will probably share it in my comments again this evening so that I know more people watch these meetings at night. It would be good for parents to hear it as well, what's happening. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay. Thank you very much. And that concludes our briefing for this afternoon. The next scheduled meeting of the board is 6 p.m. this evening.